Okay, we're recording.
Hi. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the June 2023 Curriculum Committee Subcommittee meeting. This is a really exciting meeting, perhaps the most exciting of the year, because we're going to get to see an academic year in review for K-12 for the Weston Public Schools. It's a great opportunity to see what students are learning, but even more so to see all of the hard work put forth by all of our teachers and our administrators and our faculty. So we're very excitedly looking forward to it. We are going to postpone approving the May minutes until our next meeting so that we can dedicate our time today to hearing the wonderful agenda that has been prepared.
Great, thank you, Dr. Kingsley. Hello, everyone. I just want to ditto Dr. Kingsley's sentiments. We are very excited to be here today. Celebrations around our academic year in review. You will notice that we have our full curriculum and instruction leader team with us today. We all have come together to provide you with a summary and a synopsis of all the great work that the K-12 departments have done. And I'm going to start off our presentation. Thumbs up if you can see that presentation for me. Thumbs up, yes. Thumbs up, great, thank you. So I'm actually going to start, but when we as a team and a department really looked at some of how we wanted to summarize our work this school year, I really charged the departments with being able to answer 3 of the questions on today's agenda. The first is, what were some of the high leverage focus areas that led to the greatest accomplishments in your department, specifically this academic school year? I also wanted them to reflect on the areas of celebration and some of the lessons that they learned or the takeaways that they had from this academic year. And finally, thinking ahead, what are some of the proposed next steps that, if you were to continue in this role as the curriculum instruction leader, that you would provide to the district and the school to continue moving the work forward? So you will see in a moment that I will actually be handing this presentation over to all the wonderful curriculum instruction leaders that we have in the district. We're very fortunate to have a team of leaders who are very committed to curriculum instruction, teaching, and learning. Are regularly supporting our building teams towards continuous growth and improvement that are aligned to our district and school and teacher goals. Our curriculum instruction leaders are unique in that they are experts in high quality evidence-based instructional practices. They take an active role to design meaningful professional development for our staff. They also facilitate and lead our curriculum development process to ensure that we have a coherent pre-K through 12 alignment. And they serve as mentors and role models for all of us in this work. And we are constantly refining our craft, and we are lifelong learners in this process. And so tonight, I'm really excited to be able to give them the floor and really highlight and celebrate all the great success and work that they've contributed to the goals this school year. So I hope that you'll notice that the organization of this presentation is really as a K-12 partnership across all the different departments. So they're organized in a way where we're really looking at some of the K-12 work that we've done across the different content areas. And we've prepared, there's a lot of members of this team, and so we've really worked collaboratively to develop this presentation. And so respectfully, I do ask that we allow them, once I hand over the presentation to them, to allow them to focus on their thinking and the flow of the presentation, and to hold all those questions until the end. And then we'll have an opportunity to open the floor so that we can engage in a conversation and also be able to answer some of the questions that you may have upon review of the presentation, since you had it before today's meeting. Just wanted to also summarize that you should see that there has been a through line of presentations throughout the school year around some of our work around teaching and learning. And so I just provided you with a summary of some of the past topics that we have engaged in during the school year in the subcommittee meeting. All of these presentations, as you know, are are recorded, and they're also they're posted on the website, so you can actually go back and review some of the presentations, just like this one is today. And so the flow of the presentation is within 4 areas. I mentioned the agenda tonight. They're actually organized as reflective questions when the teams came on to actually provide the synopsis and the summary of their work. So the first is focus areas, right? I asked them to really think about what were some of the high leverage action steps that you deemed as focus areas for the work this past school year. When we think about our work, there's a lot of different pieces of our work that we do day in and day out, but maybe they aren't necessarily all written down, right? We couldn't bullet every single thing that we've been working on this school year. So I really wanted them to focus and hone in on what were some of those high leverage action steps that you really felt deemed the greatest impact on the work this school year. The second bullet is around areas of celebration. What are you most proud of this school year? Third, what were some of the lessons learned or the takeaways that you had from your work this school year? And then finally, thinking ahead, what were some of the ways or identified areas that you would provide to us as a district leadership team, as a school leadership team for next steps? If we were to continue working and moving forward, what would be some of those high leverage next steps that you think should be included in our district and school level improvement plans moving forward? So I'm now going to turn over the presentation to our first curriculum instruction leader, Patty Powers. She is our health and physical education curriculum instruction leader. She will now take the lead, and I'm going to hand it over to her, and then each curriculum instruction leader have planned and delegated some topics and points of conversation around their presentation. And as I mentioned before, if we could hold our questions to the end, and then I will summarize and talk about next steps moving forward, and then we can open the floor for questions. So Patty, I'm going to ask you to take on over.
Hello, everyone. Very nice to be here today. Some of the focus areas that we focused on this school year were DBT integration, Connecticut physical fitness testing, specifically some of the weak areas that we had identified from the previous school year, for example, cardiorespiratory fitness and flexibility. And we really focused a lot on our testing environment and best strategies. We also focused on unit planning and assessment, most specifically backward design and performance-based assessments in health education. And we also were working to increase social emotional learning experiences in our K-5 PE settings. And our areas of celebration, I think we made a lot of progress this year. And we did successfully incorporate DBT into 6 through 10, and with new reinforcement in 11 through 12, which is great because now all of our students grades 6 through 12 are getting DBT instruction. And our health teachers at both the high school level and middle school levels worked with counselors, and we provided professional development for all 612 staff. We were successful in creating a few new performance-based assessments at the middle school level and at the high school level. And we also put in place some new social emotional strategies in K-5 health, which were pretty exciting. They regularly do mindfulness activities now. They have like a mindful mat and like a conversation corner. And one of our PE teachers really incorporated just positive affirmations into the fitness testing environment. And we saw some really good positive results with that. We also integrated more ruler at the K2 health level, and each of those 3 grades, K1 and 2, are really connecting to what they're learning in the classroom with what they're doing in the health classroom, along with connecting that to some parent connection assignments that go home. And that's in the feelings unit in, again, grades K1 and 2. If we can move on, there we go. Some of the takeaways that we have learned that we really need to consistently reinforce the DBT skills at all levels. And we're seeing some evidence that the more focus that we place upon that, and the more we do reinforce it with all different areas of a student's life, the more the students are using it. So we are starting to see our students use it, which is really exciting. We also learned that the environment and planning for fitness testing is definitely critical, and we really focused on that this year. We had some down elements of that testing in the year prior. And we've, our initial look at and glance at what we have accomplished this year looks very promising. So that's something that we're going to continue to work on, but it's basically smaller groups, positive reinforcement, goal setting, reflection, and all of that seems to be working. We also see that there's a need for more professional development in unit design, data collecting, assessment strategies, and that's something we want to continue to work on. We made some progress, which was awesome. We really are excited about where we can go with that. And we have seen in both the middle school level and the elementary levels that the more social emotional learning that we incorporate into our classrooms, and that's both health and PE, the classroom management is so much easier, and our students are more motivated, more invested, and we're seeing, increased student growth in those areas. So that's great. And then our next steps, things that we want to continue to work on. We want to expand the DBT initiative to parents and caregivers now. We started with ourselves, then we added the the staff piece, the other staff piece, and now we want to make sure we extend the learning to our parents and caregivers as well. We want to continue researching strategies to make our fitness testing environment and all of our unit environments in PE even better and more conducive to more student growth as well. And continuing the DBT ruler language. And I want to, when we're talking about planning for the fitness testing, incorporating some of that language that they're learning in the health classrooms into the PE environment as well. I think we'll see some better results with that. And then just enhancing our existing health and PE units, considering that end in mind, really incorporating the backward design and making sure all the learning experiences for our students are meaningful. So I think I'd like to turn it over to counseling now.
Thanks, Patty.
You're
So
welcome.
everyone will definitely hear some similarities between our two departments. So I think it's nice that we went down next to each other. So we talk about the school counseling. For this year, we are undergoing a curriculum review and update, K-12. And so we will be having that wrapped up by June 30th. Within the curriculum writing that we are doing, some of the topics that we are focusing on with students is resilience, coping skills, social skills, and some of the lessons that we're building are around that. At the lower levels, they're also reinforcing building-wide behavioral expectations, and also doing that with ruler. At the high school and the middle school levels, we have been focusing on DBT as well. We also have a consultation team this year that consists of all of our PPS staff, where we discuss strategies, share ideas, and talk about interventions that we have or that we need for our students. For areas of celebration, it really has been a lot of that professional development that Patty was talking about that we were able to do and provide for our families. I don't know if we lost. I think we lost the screen. I can continue without the PowerPoint if everyone's okay with that. Okay. So again, that professional development that we were talking about for our staff was really important. Letting them know the language of DBT, talking about some of the things that they may see in their classroom and how that they can reinforce the language and the skills that they're learning in health and PE and with the counseling suite. So that's been another area of celebration this year. Also, at the high school level, we've been able to access our students more through the advisory program. For those of you who may not be aware, the advisory program is now meeting weekly. So we have more access to our students. That's another area of celebration. And also this year, we do have a dedicated DBT social skills group for students who were recommended. And that's been going really well. And we want to continue with that work as well. Moving on to takeaways, we do also see the need for more ongoing training in the area of ruler and DBT, just for that common language and making sure that we all have that same vision and mission moving forward. And that's where we're going to start moving more with some of the parent programs. We think that that will be the next essential rollout for the DBT and for the ruler as well. We also noticed that there are MTSS. Oh, thank you very much. We also noticed that there is a need to review our MTSS interventions and strategies, looking at Tier 1, and then again, that progression to Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions. And we also talked about the need for some more SEL assessment strategies and maybe some data collection about some of the areas of need that our students have had, and how to kind of assess their progress. So for next steps for the counseling department, one big thing is going to be the implication of school links, which is going to be 612. For those of you who may have been familiar previously with the program Naviance, it was our college and career planning program. We are now going to be moving away from Naviance and starting with school links as of July 1. We're actually really excited to be using that program. They also have some SEL lessons built in there, as well as some interest inventories and some learning style inventories that we're excited to be using and implementing in our curriculum. Also, we also talked about ongoing parent workshops for DBT and ruler, and as well as additional staff training. And also, I know at the high school level, we are looking at a wellness seminar possibly as a course for students, where they can actually sign up and take a class around DBT. And also there could be some parent involvement as well. So that's something we're looking towards in the future. And lastly, there's a partnership with Challenge Success. Ms. Ward has been working with our PTO and this company Challenge Success. Basically, this organization looks to define what success is, right? And what is important for our values and for our students when we're looking at being successful after high school. So that's a program that I know we're going to be working with, and I know they're going to be doing some presentations for staff in the beginning of the year, as well as families around social emotional well-being. And then we're also going to be working with them later in the school year as we come to talk about college planning and post-secondary planning and that question of the right fit. So we're excited to be working with that program as well. And so at this point, I am going to turn the presentation over to Alex.
Hi, everyone. This is Alex Bluestein, and I'm going to lead us off with our literacy updates for grades K through 12. There has been a lot of work that we have rallied around this year. As you may be aware, the state of Connecticut passed legislation around literacy curricula and universal screening assessments. The purpose of which was to better align with the science of reading and ensuring successful literacy instruction for all students. This is a huge responsibility that we took on and that we hold for our students in evaluating and selecting the most robust curricula, which aligns with the needs of our students and provides them a rigorous literacy experience. In response to this, the district established a literacy committee comprised of district administrators, curriculum leaders, classroom teachers, reading specialists across all buildings. And our charge was to evaluate the legislation, understand the background and purpose, vet the curricula options that were put forth by the state, and make recommendations about which program to implement. We also needed, alongside this, to ensure that our multiple systems of support for all students, which you may have previously heard referred to as SRBI or intervention, is systematized across buildings and aligned with best practices for literacy. And as always, we scrutinize and analyze reading and writing performance across all grades and to ensure that all readers and writers continue to grow and improve. As a result of this work, we're excited to share that we have selected a new core literacy program for grades K-5 in a staggered implementation schedule. So that will be for K-2 next year and 3-5 the following year. We are thrilled that the district budget passed that will allow for full-time instructional coaches, so that we can dig into this work and support teachers in the Tier 1 classrooms with a new curriculum and instructional practices that come with that. We, as always, have focused tremendously on how we're supporting the Tier 1 classroom through student-centered learning, differentiation, and ongoing analysis of student data. You may remember us discussing at this meeting over the last few years the intense focus our teachers had when we returned to school after shutdown, prioritizing reading volume, stamina, and engagement. And we're very proud to share that this work has sustained and continued. And as a result, our readers are more engaged, reading more voluminously and more excited about reading than I feel like I've ever seen since I've been in Weston. And that is what is most important to me. Alongside of that, it bears out in the data, which also continues to improve year over year. And so I'm going to turn the next slide over to Jess.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Jess Tabuno. I'm the CIL for 612 ELA, and I'm going to talk to you about some of the takeaways from some of the information that Alex shared. I think that something that was so helpful this year was our district literacy committee, because we were able to get a number of professionals around the table to talk about literacy K-12. And not only were we, while we were looking at what the state was mandating, we were able to look at our district's own decision-making, our own programs, and the different things that we are doing in our district K-12. So one thing that we kind of learned from some of these conversations is that we have this need for developing K-12 language around literacy instruction and assessment, that we want to make sure that we're using the same language, not just in our professional settings, but also with the students. So we're going to be, making sure that we're doing that aligned a little bit more. We also need to be able to have a broader variety of instructional supports to meet the needs of all of our learners. We talk about that K-12 with all of the different needs that our students may have. We need to be able to meet those. So we need to kind of have a bigger variety of supports for that. And again, like Alex referenced, we really talked much more about this need for the instructional coaches to be able to do that full time, to be able to come in and to help teachers with that language, with that instruction, the assessment, and the supports. And thankfully, we were able to do that next year. Thanks to all of you. So thank you. And we also are talking a lot about refining and revising the assessment structure across the grade levels. I just think that the biggest takeaway for me being at the 612 part was being able to learn much more about what was happening K-5 and then see that vertical alignment where we know where we want our students to be as graduates of Weston Public Schools, and that we can really work towards meeting those needs in a vertical alignment. And I think I pass now to Andrea.
Hello, how are you? Sorry, we still are doing dismissal here at Hurlbut. So I'm going to talk a little about our K-12 assessment calendar that we're going to be creating for the upcoming 23-24 school year. This is going to ensure vertical alignment of our assessments and include dates that these assessments will be administered. Additionally, this summer, we'll be updating our K-12 reading and writing curricular documents. Tina will go into greater detail regarding this work when she shares with you the Summer Curriculum Academy information later in this presentation. We are preparing for the implementation of our new reading and writing curriculum from the American Reading Company in grades K-2 this fall. And our upcoming year of professional development will focus on changes to our literacy curriculum, training in assessment systems like the DIBELS 8 training that will occur this Friday on June 16th, as well as best practices in reading and writing instruction. I pass off now to Nick.
Hi, I'm Nick Torres. I am the grade 6 through 12 social studies CIL, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about our focus areas for this past year. So we were really focused on continuing to give robust assessments and instruction that utilize inquiry. So we have so many examples of this, but the one that I wanted to highlight was the Guardians of the Earth project, because it's a interdisciplinary project with the science department that we do in the 6th grade at the middle school. And so, inquiry design really is starting with giving students a little bit of background information, but then promoting the idea that Andrea, could you mute yourself, please? Thanks. So really promoting the idea that students are the ones asking the questions. They're the ones kind of driving what they want to learn. And it's a research design process. And so this year, students worked with their social studies and science teachers on this Guardians of the Earth project. They were able to learn about, it could have been anything from environmental issues to green technology, water issues, and they really got to, design their own model of research. Going along with that, we are focused heavily on skills-based instruction. So we want students, obviously, to know content. It's important for students to be well-informed as, global citizens. However, we want them to learn content through the vehicle of skill delivery. So an example of that might be analyzing primary sources, analyzing maps, analyzing audio or visual resources, being able to identify main ideas, critique sources, evaluate them for bias, things like that. And ultimately, we're talking about literacy and writing skills. And we also focused this year a lot on vertical articulation. So the example that really stands out is the way that we used 8th grade writing portfolio information to inform the 9th grade writing assessments. And so the 9th grade teachers are constantly looking at where to meet their incoming students. And the 8th grade writing portfolio is a great way of helping us align that vertically. I'll finish with one area of celebration and then I'll pass it back to Andrea. We are wanting to support district reading goals, obviously. Students, this is not unique to social studies. Students read in all of their classes, but we believe we can really support informational reading instruction. So that was something we focused significantly on this year. And, we're proud of the work that we did in support of district literacy. So now I'll pass back to Andrea.
Thank you, Nick. So I'm going to talk briefly about a few experiences that our students had this school year that exemplify our partnership with the Weston Historical Society. Oh, go back a slide. Thank you. At Hurlbut, we had an in-house field trip with the director of the Weston Historical Society, Samantha Fargione. She taught our 2nd grade students about 3 prominent historical members from the Weston community. And we linked this learning to our integrated reading, writing, and social studies biography unit of study. At the Weston Intermediate School, our 3rd grade students were able to take an in-person field trip to the Weston Historical Society. This was a phenomenal hands-on learning experience that really brought history to life for our students, which we know is very critical for the age of our students. At the high school level, our AP Human Geography students were also able to visit the Weston Historical Society. On their trip there, they learned about the origin and place names around Weston. Students were able to watch a video about the origin of 11 O'Clock Road, as well as the community of Valley Forge, which existed where the Saugatuck Reservoir currently exists. Additionally, we're very proud of the progress that we've made in our interdisciplinary information reading and their comprehension with that. Our NWA data demonstrates strong student performance in this area. Overall, our NWA assessment data will be shared at an upcoming Board of Education meeting on June 20th, but we're pleased with the results that we are seeing. I'll pass it back to Alex. Oh, no, this is still me. My apologies. wrong slide. So we're also working a lot on the fact that our Connecticut frameworks are in the final stages of the approval process. The new social studies frameworks and model curriculum are going to help us guide an audit of our K-12 curriculum and provide guidance to drafting revisions that will come within the future. As part of our revision process, we will be exploring additional resources that the state of Connecticut will be able to provide for us, which will ensure that our teachers have the materials that they need for their instruction. And then lastly, the new frameworks are quite comprehensive, and so they may require us needing to revisit the allocation of time for social studies instruction, particularly at the K-5 level. Now back to Alex.
Hello. So as you all have learned, in at least the areas of language arts and social studies, the state has taken on with urgency the revision of requirements and standards and legislation, more so the standards in social studies. And so our charge will be, once the standards are finalized and adopted by the state, to really get down to work, to deep dive into the standards and establish what is new or shifting across grades in terms of standards and requirements set forth by the state. Once we do that, we need to prioritize where our work will start in order to balance priorities across content areas with other new curricula implementation. As an example, it will be way too much for K-2 teachers to implement new social studies standards and a new language arts curriculum. So we're going to be very mindful about how and when we revise our current curriculum and implement with new resources and standards. The social studies standards, as Nick mentioned, are inquiry-based. And so it's going to be extremely important to enhance and expand our knowledge of inquiry-based instruction so that we can design high-leverage inquiry-based units of study and lessons for our students. Always, we work with other departments to promote cross-curricular instruction because we know that the greatest transfer that we see in our teaching is when we work cross-curricularly, interdisciplinarily. And that work has been work that we have done for many years and will continue to ensure even in the next iteration of our social studies curriculum. And so I believe I am passing off to Carolyn now.
Carolyn, we can't hear you. You're still on mute.
Thank you. I'm having a lot of 2020 flashbacks during this presentation. This year, our main math focus at every level has been building even greater capacity with student-centered learning strategies. We want to make sure that students are active learners, owning their conceptual understanding, and that they're confident problem solvers. One of the main tools we used throughout all 4 buildings was a resource titled Building Thinking Classrooms in Mathematics, which offers different related strategies, all shown to increase student thinking, communication, and mathematical agency. For example, one simple strategy of having student groups problem solving together at an erasable vertical surface, which by default has the group all standing and looking at the problem with the same upright perspective, has huge impacts. So we've all seen the positive effects of this work at all levels. Another focus of our work this year was the preparation for our Tri-State Consortium visit this past March. Their visit focused on 2 related aspects. We asked them for an objective assessment of where we were with the student-centered instruction we've been working on, and then just as importantly, how we were doing with ensuring that this high-quality instruction was available for all students, regardless of their level or other factors. So the 5th through 12th grade teachers spent a lot of time collecting evidence to share with the team on these areas and reflectively preparing for and taking part in this visit. All right, Kelly?
Hello, I'm Kelly Del Vecchio. I am the K-2 Math CIL, and I'm going to start off by sharing some exciting areas of celebration that we had down at Hurlbut. So I first want to start off with, we had a successful implementation of methodology, developing roots in kindergarten. As some of you might recall, last year we piloted the program in 2 kindergarten classrooms, and this year we had a full successful implementation of the program. Our youngest mathematicians, they are building their foundations in math using all the strategies aligned with building a thinking classroom, and it is a completely student-centered curriculum. As you can see in the snapshots below, the math is literally in their hands throughout their entire math experience. The resources are strongly grounded in our philosophy of teaching mathematics, and they provide a smooth transition into Math in Focus, which is what the program we use in 1st through 5th. And you can surely feel the love of math when you walk into the classrooms, from the teachers, from the students. It really is a wonderful, wonderful feeling. Our second celebration is we were able to return to in-person parent workshops, K5. Carolyn and I were so thrilled to bring these back at Hurlbut and at WIS. And in fact, there was so much interest. We both needed to offer a second session for parents so that we could accommodate the interest. It was called Understanding Elementary School Mathematics, and our goal was to help parents understand the math that their child is learning and help to allow you to better support that learning at home. We hear a lot of new math or different math, so we really wanted to help parents to be able to support their child at home. These sessions were interactive and hands-on, and I think everyone left excited for learning some new ways to think about mathematics. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive, and we really hope to continue them in the future, possibly with the same, themes, and there were other themes that were suggested to us as well. So we hope we can accommodate that. I'm going to hand it over to Janine to share some 612 celebrations.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm Janine Russo, the 612 Math CIL. So for the first time this year, the middle school students got to experience mathematics workshop. The curriculum for all 3 grades was developed last summer and was created to be as engaging and hands-on as possible, providing opportunities for the students to explore the probability and statistics standards at each grade level. Each grade's workshop included a culminating project based on either research or an experiment, depending on the standards. In 6th grade, students learned how to ask a meaningful statistical question and learned how to describe data using the quantitative representations of mean, median, mode, quartiles, and range, and the visual representations like dot plots and box and whisker plots. In 7th grade, it was more of a probability focus. Students learned how to develop, use, and evaluate probability models, both theoretical and experimental, and express the likelihood that an event will occur. And then finally, in 8th grade, students studied 2-variable statistics, including the understanding of the difference between categorical and numerical data, and modeling those bivariate relationships using different representations, including equations, scatter plots, lines of best fit. Overall, it was a very successful first year in workshop, and the teachers look forward to refining these ideas in the coming year. Another secondary area of celebration involved piloting some new resources this year. As Carolyn mentioned, as in the lower grades, the secondary teachers also began experimenting with the Building Thinking Classrooms model. At this point, I'd say teachers are at various levels of comfort and implementation of these strategies. Some have goals of implementing with more fidelity next year. And we've created some nice classroom spaces that are conducive to this as well. We also piloted some new curricular resources, which help build teachers' capacities for creating these thinking tasks for their students, and in turn help students to better build a better conceptual understanding of the mathematics content. All teachers in grades 6 through 9 piloted some portion of a program that was new to us. The 6th grade teachers piloted the full Desmos curriculum, which is based on illustrative mathematics. The 9th grade algebra teacher piloted a full year of illustrative math itself. And 7th and 8th grade teachers each chose individual units from the illustrative curriculum to try with their classes. The feedback from the students at all grades was pretty positive. They enjoyed the opportunities to really engage with the math that both Desmos and IM provided. And the teachers appreciated that the lessons allowed all students, even our most challenged learners, to really collaborate and communicate and contribute more than they would have in a more traditional setting. Some takeaways we have from this year include a need to reflect and revise the current instructional supports we have in place in order to meet the needs of all of our students. This was a recommendation from the Tri-State Committee and something we had already acknowledged as an area for improvement. While we have a solid support structure in place at the lower schools, the more formal intervention supports at the middle school are still in relatively early stages. We implemented an intervention program during COVID. So this is kind of the first like relatively normal year of it. And we definitely have some work to do there. At the high school, we also have the beginnings of a program with our math lab. And we look forward to continuing to better utilize the teachers in those roles at both schools by providing more push-in support to classes with high needs, as well as continuing to identify small groups of students for pull-out support. So we believe the shift to full-time instructional coaches, K-12, will help support, offer more consistent support to the teachers as they plan for differentiation and provide tier 1 intervention as well to their students. Looking forward to next year, we plan to unpack the Tri-State report and review the recommendations in order to identify some areas of focus. And we plan to support the implementation of new curriculum and resources in grade 6 and 9th grade Algebra 1, along with the necessary training and professional development for a successful transition. I will turn it back to Kelly now to wrap up our portion.
Hello. So another next step for us too is to research and pilot some new resources for our MTSS or SRBI intervention. While we've had a successful structure in place to support all students in Weston, we're always striving to do better. And we plan to research and pilot new resources to provide a coherent system for continuous improvement. We have a strong committee established, and we'll be updating our handbook to support our staff engaged in this process of high quality evidence-based instruction to all students, as well as to develop a consistent processes and procedures across all the schools K-12 in mathematics. And lastly, we will be updating all of our curriculum documents as we move away from Atlas, as stated earlier. Math will also be transferring all of our curriculum to ensure the vertical alignment and the consistency across grade levels. So we are looking forward to the time to do that work as well. And I am happy to turn it over to Carolyn now to talk science.
All right. So this year we focused on fully implementing our science curriculum and the next generation science standards. Last year, we still needed to do some backfilling and compacting due to our COVID recovery, especially in K-5, where science had to sometimes give way for more core reading and math recovery. We needed to compact some things to meet the standards. But this year, we returned to full depth, including a full emphasis on the science and engineering practices at all levels K-12. Increasing student capacity in these science and engineering practices was a focus in itself. You see pictures in the pictures here, some of the practices in action in a few of these photos. Students working on things including planning and carrying out investigations, analyzing and interpreting data, carrying out the engineering and design process. So we're really pleased with the results of this focus. Right. Jamie?
Thank you, Carolyn. These practices really are key for the NGSS, so a focus at the middle school and the high school levels was to provide opportunities for all students to demonstrate growth in these practices. Like Carolyn mentioned, analyzing data is a big one, planning and performing investigations, designing and evaluating potential solutions to authentic problems. So teachers gathered baseline data on student performance levels and then continually implemented opportunities for growth and improvement in these skills, gauging student progress along the way. And as we continue on into the areas of celebration, I'll share some specific examples, but I'll let Carolyn start us off first.
All right. Yeah. So the first item we want to take notice to celebrate is what happens to even our youngest students when they get to do real science and scientific discovery. So with things like fourth graders building working wind turbines, second graders testing the glue they designed themselves based on their experimentation, the engagement has been off the charts with every student enthusiastically thinking critically and in very challenging ways.
Back to me.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. These science standards, they highlight building student capacity at making sense of the world around them, right? Through inquiry, through investigation. So our new science workshop courses, other CILs have discussed this as well, our new science ones at the middle school, they allowed us this chance to really dive in through engaging hands-on learning, like using rockets to investigate physics concepts in 8th grade, like force and mass. And the students can gather and analyze data, launch angles, altitude, things like that, in order to make predictions and problem solve. Our other workshop courses explored things like reverse engineering and biomimicry. That's in 6th grade. And then impact of climate change on our oceans is the focus in 7th grade. Along these lines, many opportunities existed for our students to explore how humans impact the world around us. As Nick mentioned earlier, that new and improved interdisciplinary project in 6th grade, the Guardians of the Earth. As he mentioned, that's where students select a global environmental issue and take on the challenge of educating and inspiring others to enact change regarding that topic of their choice. In addition, the new sustainability course at the high school, along with green teams that are found in all of our schools throughout the district, have helped to highlight the many ways that we can be more sustainable in our everyday life. You can see on the slideshow the picture of our students that have designed and built that shed themselves to support all of the outdoor initiatives. That's right behind the high school. Some takeaways from our year focus on the benefit of curricular writing and revision in order to maximize alignment of our courses to the NGSS. We continue to explore ways to make our classes as engaging and impactful as possible and inspire our students to be lifelong learners. That's really every teacher's goal. In light of our efforts this year to measure and analyze student performance data on the science skills in our classes, we look forward to implementing effective methods of compiling this data so that it's accessible for teachers to use formatively across grade levels, not just in their own courses, to help all of our students continually improve, which highlights one of our key next steps, which you can see that there. In addition, we continue to research new resources that become available to enhance student learning, just provide additional opportunities for them to interactively engage in real-world problem solving. And our work as a department will culminate, again, you've heard this mentioned earlier, with the curricular revisions and documentation that will begin this June as we transition from Atlas into Google Drive and collaboratively review our scope and sequence taking place in each of our courses. I could hand it over to myself and we can get into the world of technology education. And as we check that out, you'll notice that there's a multitude of opportunities K-12 for students to engage in digital technology and the engineering design process in very impactful and interactive ways. So the focus areas in the younger levels centered on expanding the coding and the maker tech experiences that provide students with opportunities to engage in collaborative problem solving and computational thinking, things they do like investigating 3D printing, dive into block coding. They do different engineering design challenges using different manipulatives. And they also incorporate lessons on being safe and effective digital citizens. The middle school and the high school courses focused on incorporating ways to differentiate the many components of the engineering design process in order to best support students and enhance their abilities in our tech education classes. And in addition, teachers focused on incorporating lessons and examples of STEM careers, just to best prepare our students for so many of the opportunities that are awaiting them in their futures if they choose to follow that path. As a K-12 team, we're very excited about the level of engagement and creativity and problem solving that takes place within these lessons, which all incorporate as much student choice and collaboration as possible. This is also supported by the additional 3D printers that now reside in every school and allow for students to create personalized items, like little bubble wands that they made at Hurlbut that they use during some field day and some phys ed activities. The students get to keep their own. We're also very proud of the fact that there's a significant enrollment increase in the high school Project Lead the Way courses for the 23-24 school year. jumping from about 75 total students in the program this year to approximately 110 next year. That's very exciting for us. Our takeaways center on the need for additional integration of tech engineering lessons and experiences within the lower grade levels, along with continued curricular revisions in the middle school grade bands. That's a result of the revised schedule that started this year. As a team, we continue to reflect on effective ways to build student skill levels while maintaining an atmosphere of inquiry and design. We don't want to sacrifice that interactive nature of the courses. There's a lot of student choice built into what the next project is going to be down the line. A main takeaway from the high school level is the need for both honors and standard level introductory courses to best meet the varying needs and abilities of the Project Lead the Way students, and that is the intention for this coming school year. In the future, to wrap this up, we'll continue to work on the vertical alignment of the core skills and concepts experience throughout our full K-8 grade band in computer science and tech education. Additionally, we'll explore possible changes to the high school Project Lead the Way course options to best match the needs and desires of our high school students, such as by introducing a semester-based course called Engineering Essentials, or possibly a digital electronics course for those who are interested in how modern digital devices work and can be improved. As we know, they are changing and being improved all the time, and we have to keep up with them. So that's a pretty intriguing course. That wraps up technology. I'd love to pass it on to Liz Morris now in the world of music, I believe.
Yes, it's me. Hi, everybody. So this year, we're pretty excited for the first year in what seems like an eternity to have a normal year of music making in our schools. We focused on rebuilding our performing ensembles, really trying to get students back into performing after being years being away from being able to participate fully for the full year. We focused on active listening for musicianship in the classroom. We found that students, because music had become sort of like background in their lives, and that we needed to take a moment and allow them the opportunity to listen and to listen to how parts work together and kind of take a pause, as well as how that works with playing instruments or with singing in the classroom. We also worked on aligning our music criteria for assessment so that we can kind of see a strand go through K-12. Some areas of celebration. There's some links here. You can see a full performing arts calendar. You can see all of our performance opportunities for students linked here. We had all of our concerts this year. We had theater performances. We had performances at Town Hall. We had, during Music in Our Schools Month, we had lobby performances at the high school. We had performances at the middle school. We celebrated Music in Our Schools Month during the month of March at our middle school with music brackets, which was a whole school activity. At the intermediate school, certain things on the morning show at Hurlbut. So during the month of March, we really wanted to celebrate Music in Our Schools Month and that we were back. This year, we had 10 regional musicians who had a normal regional festival this year in person with everyone all together. We had 6 all-state musicians and 1 all-national musician who went down to DC in the fall. Another area of celebration for us is our music performance trips this year. The middle school brought students back to the Thrills and Chills Festival to have some adjudication. We got some good feedback for our ensembles at that festival. And then our high school traveled to Boston for another adjudication festival. And we also got some good feedback from there as well. So lots to celebrate, lots of performing, lots of music in our schools. Our next slide, please. One of the things that we did notice, so one of our takeaways from this year, was that we really need to ensure that we have the proper instrumentation now that students are back playing. Which instruments are they playing, as that affects our entire 612 performing ensembles. And it also affects our performance level, that we can have the level of performance for each of those ensembles. Another takeaway is that our teacher schedules become quite tricky between buildings, and we want to make sure that we optimize their time to make the most effective use of their time for our students. Next steps are to, like everybody has said, we have to take our curriculum from Atlas and kind of do some revisions and refining our curriculum with our scope and sequence. We have to refine our common assessments and assured experiences and update all of our curriculum documents. But as I mentioned before, we really want to take a look at our leveled music. What is the need in our leveled music in our ensembles 6 through 12, and what is the need of the instrumentation, and make sure that we can accommodate that. And that is it for music. So I'm going to pass it on to Kate.
Hi everyone, I'm Kate O'Keefe, Visual Arts CIL, kindergarten through 12th grade. So this year, our department really focused on creating district-wide rubrics in critique and responding to promote more discourse amongst our students within the classroom. All of these rubrics look different at each level, but all are aligned to the national course standards in the visual arts. With pre-pandemic exhibitions kind of returning to normal with in-person art shows, our students have had more opportunities to submit work to exhibit both outside in the community. We've had students submit work to shows in Westport, Wilton, and at Fairfield University, as well as the Scholastic Art Awards. Some areas of celebration that we're really proud of this year, we partnered with the music department at the high school and had a full day field trip down to New York City, where we went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, moved on to a backstage tour of Radio City Music Hall, and then we ended our day with Lion King on Broadway. We also had our first in-person district-wide art show, Art Jam, which has returned to in-person since COVID, which was really exciting. It was a great night to celebrate the work of all of our artists, kindergarten through 12th grade. And we successfully implemented some course revisions in the 2D pathway at the high school, as well as we've had an increase in enrollment in both videography and photography at the high school, and those have both returned to pre-pandemic levels. Next slide, please. Some takeaways from this school year is we really realized that we need to work on the scope and sequence of our 6-12 curriculum, as we've had a lot of changes both at the middle school and the high school. So we have a lot of vertical alignment work to do in the next school year. So some of our next steps, we're going to continue with the implementation of our critique and responding rubrics, kindergarten through 12th grade. And we're going to continue to explore a lot of our content-based PD sessions. These have been really exciting over the past 2 years. We've gone to Brookfield Craft Center and the New Britain Museum of American Art in the past, and participated in workshops where we've explored wheel work with clay. We've also done jewelry workshops and some glass workshops this school year. And we'll, of course, continue to try to implement and infuse some STEAM work district-wide into some of our units. And we're going to continue to explore more district opportunities to exhibit student artwork, as well as some ways to expand our 3D art and design pathway at the high school. And now I'm going to pass it off to Tina Henkel.
Great job, everyone. I'm actually going to round out the presentation with world language. Mercedes Fernandez, who was our K-12 SIL for world language, was not able to be here today, but she's with us in spirit right now, and she prepared all my talking points for me. So thank you for doing that, Mercedes. So some of the areas that she's been working on with her department this year, specifically, obviously French, Spanish, and Chinese programs, they've really emphasized the oral communication in the targeted languages. The teachers have really taught students the necessary communication strategies to maintain informal conversations in the language. and make formal presentations on specific topics. If anyone has had an opportunity to be in some of these upper level language classes, they're pretty impressive. It really shows and exemplifies the impact of a K-12 program in districts when they start getting to those, especially those middle school grades. And they really are, they're always talking in the language and hardly ever speak in English. And it's quite impressive. So that she didn't prepare that, I'm just saying that. Another area of focus that the department worked on this year, led by Mercedes, is the focus on reading comprehension. At all levels, students, they've shown great progress in their reading comprehension skills based on some of the internal and external assessments that they administer in the department. And teachers have also provided students with multiple scaffolds to help them increase their comprehension given in the given targeted languages that they're involved in. And they've been also able to finish and renew some instructional materials, specifically at the middle school. They've added leveled readers to support their goals at the middle school. And these leveled readers help support the social emotional learning environment, and they've really helped support teachers' ability to instill a sense of perseverance and academic risk-taking within a comfortable learning environment. So those were some of the aspects that she's been working on with the department this year. So she's really excited about the very enthusiastic progress that they've made with their young Spanish learners in the K-5 program. This year, they've had a strong staff at the K-5 level, which has ensured continuous exposure to the language and an increased level of continuity of instruction for our youngest learners. And as I mentioned before, that continuity of instruction at the K-5 level specifically in Spanish has really elevated their ability to speak at the upper grades. The department is thrilled that because of this change to the middle school schedule, the French and Spanish students have now been engaging in daily instruction in the languages at the middle school for the first time. And I was able to witness some of that impact as well this school year. They're really excited about some of their increase in skill ability, and they really don't want to speak in English at all when they're in those classes. And so that's really exciting for them. They've made tremendous progress based on this new schedule, and it's really provided them with a continuity of instruction and depth of instruction as well. And finally, at the high school level, they've participated in a standardized language assessment and contests that measure their proficiency in the languages. And many of the students have met or exceeded expectations this year. She's also very excited about the ability to recognize our students at the annual language ceremony. I participated and went also, and it was quite impressive to see the levels of awards and all the students, and they really took leadership roles and provided presentations to their peers in all the different languages that we offer at the high school level. So kudos to Mercedes and her department on that. So some of the takeaways that she had this year, and I think you've heard a common thread across many of the departments is around resources, right? Specifically in the World Language Department, they've really refined the digital resources that support the acquisition of language development in the variety of languages that they offer. All of the teachers, K-12, they've utilized the most appropriate platforms to deliver curriculum and provide engagement and practice opportunities for students. And teachers are always reflecting and revising their instructional supports that they offer to all learners. Next year, the department would like to continue to focus on the interpretive mode of communication, specifically reading comprehension, and focusing more on listening and viewing skills as they provide more foundation for expressive skills. And they're also going to embark on, just like you've heard in most all the departments, we're going to be focusing on curriculum renewal and identifying more priority within the courses, specifically in French and Latin. And they want to continue to refine and update their current benchmark assessments. And then finally, they want to be able to really think about a way to strategically partner department staff between some more veteran and experienced teachers with some of our newly hired teachers across the K-12 continuum, so that there's regular and ongoing support for them in order to implement the curriculum with integrity and at a high level. So that concludes all the different departments, but I wanted to be able to speak and kind of consolidate some of the common threads that you may have seen or heard from the different departments. You can see that this curriculum instruction leadership team is second to none. They are the experts in their areas. They're collaborative. You can even see with our district leaders, we jump in when everyone needs something. And when there's a hiccup in implementation, we just kind of pick up the pieces where we left off. So thank you all for doing that. We did have I felt Carolyn's anxiety as well with the COVID experience with some of the technical issues. So Megan, thanks for joining in there too. None of that was planned. So way to go, team. But I wanted to kind of emphasize some of the work that's going to be happening over the summer. You can hear and see the level of work and depth that these curriculum instruction leaders have done across the K-12 continuum. And you can see how they've really partnered together. They don't see themselves as isolated individuals within their specific grade levels. They see themselves as a support system and a support around a continuum K-12. So they are collaborating all the time, not only within their current areas of expertise, but even across content areas, which is really exciting. And this summer, you have heard a through line with all the departments around curriculum refinement, revision, or development. And we're very excited that we are going to be running a summer curriculum academy. It's an intensive 5-day curriculum training academy where all teachers will be grounding their work around the Understanding by Design framework, which is a research-based framework to design curriculum. So it ensures coherence and alignment K-12 across different content areas. We're also going to be thinking of the content that we are deciding that goes into that curriculum framework based on the Universal Design for Learning, which is the what, the why, and the how of curriculum. Like, what are we going to put in the curriculum for students to actually engage in the learning? Like, how do we make those decisions, right? And then within that work, this team designed curriculum templates. You heard the word scope and sequence. You heard the words pacing guides. You may have heard the word units. This team developed our own Weston templates to help ensure that curriculum academy, during that process for teachers, there's a coherent and an alignment around the development process that we're going to be instituting this summer. So we currently have approximately 45 teachers across 7 different content areas that are going to be working. We've organized them in content area teams, and this group will be helping to lead some of that work over the summer. And I'm really excited to engage in this work for them. This will be my first summer in Weston, so it's a great way to kick off the summer before everyone goes on their merry way, and also help us prepare for the upcoming school year as well. And then, lastly, when we talk about the work that we do in the school year, we're always reflecting, we're always refining. And you can go to the next slide, Megan, as we close out. This leadership team is always asking for feedback. We are always asking questions and then reflecting on that experience, because we know that means nothing. And you can click the slide, Megan, unless we act on it, right? And so we don't only reflect, but then we talk about what's the next steps, right? What are we going to do because of that feedback? And this team has really been an asset for us to be able to move the work forward. And Lisa and I have really valued the work that this team has brought to the Weston departments and helping us meet all of our district and school level and teacher level goals. We are so appreciative of their dedication and their unwavering commitment to teaching and learning. And we're really excited that some of our members of the committee of the team will be maintaining their roles moving forward next year. Some of our members have decided to go back into the classroom full time, and some of our members have also will be taking on some new leadership roles next year. And so I just wanted to also take the time to say thank you to all of them. They have been such an instrumental support for me being new in Weston and helping us continue with the various aspects of the work. And the team moving forward, I'm really excited to say that as we think about the ongoing growth and development of this team and the coaching that we are really going to be focusing on next year, we will be engaging in cognitive coaching training next year with the Thinking Collaborative group. and which is based on Jim Knight's research around coaching teachers, coaching leaders, and really understanding adult learning theory. And we really value this work with the Thinking Collaborative group, because the work that they have are aligned to some of the work that I've done in the past around explicit frameworks for implementing coaching cycles, talking about instructional routines to support adult learning. And it helps us build our expertise around professional development, which is what our role is in the district, and what these members will be really focusing their work on next year. And most importantly, there's also opportunities for us to grow and learn as leaders. So there's going to be a lot of work collaborating between the SILs and the school-based leaders and district-based leaders as well with this, with the Thinking Collaborative partnership. And also, we're grounding this work in sustainability and long-term growth and achievement. So we're really excited for the work ahead, and I can't thank you and this team enough for all the great work that they've done. You're now putting a face to a name with the work that is out there, and so huge round of applause and celebration to all of them. Thank you for all your hard work and dedication this school year. So that closes out the presentation. Everyone has a little piece of the pie. I hope that we are able to celebrate some of the great work that they've done this year. And I want to take some time to open the floor to any questions that may have been brewing as the presentation evolved, and see if the board would like to ask anyone for further details around some of the action steps or things that we talked about today.
Dr. Henkel, thank you so much. And thank you all curriculum leaders. That was a phenomenal presentation. And it is not easy to get so much good information in such a short window of time. So I really appreciate how hard you work to be able to give us that taste. Not only just a taste, it was a very thorough look at all of the important parts of what you do and what our students are learning. I think, the big resonating feeling here is exactly how thoughtful and deliberate all of the work is across curriculum, and that's definitely reflected in the learning experience for the student. So thank you so much for that. I have a couple of questions, but before I jump into any of the other board members have anything they would like to ask David or Chad?
I have a question, but you can start, Bernie. I'll get to mine eventually.
The same.
Okay.
Same here, Bernie. So you go ahead and take the lead.
All right, my questions are really big picture questions. So anybody who feels like they're ready to jump in, feel free to do that. We hear a lot of talk in the news from different educational sites about the state of education in the country. Sometimes they talk about how we are in the post-pandemic catch-up phase. Some people are back to normal. Sometimes we're in a new normal. What do we feel like we are in Weston in relation to the pandemic, the before, and wherever we are now?
I think that's a great question, and I do hope I am gonna pass it over to maybe Patty and Meredith a little bit, because I think there are some pieces that are still resonating from COVID, specifically around social emotional learning and being able to adjust back to, I don't want to say back to normal academic expectations. And I know that anybody can jump in here, but I am wondering if Meredith and Patty kind of want to dive a little bit deeper around some of the pieces around Ruler and DBT and some of the learning and the experiences that they're seeing around the social emotional aspect of that transition back to, normal education environment since COVID. It's a great question, Bernie.
I can speak a little bit to, I think that's some of the reason why we chose some of the areas that we're working with some of our students. I think resiliency is something, and coping skills are really the two main things that we think out of COVID affected our students the most. So we're trying to get them to work through some of that, and that's why we're kind of focusing on those areas, as well as some of the social skills. We got some feedback from teachers when students did put them into groups, to work in groups in a class. But the kids had a hard time doing that. They weren't sure how to do this. They were in a group, but they would work individually still. So I think we're seeing some of those effects from COVID mostly. I don't know, Patty, anything else you want to share?
No, I agree as well. It's a lot of the social piece, and sometimes, and I saw this in a big sign in Mrs. Hare's room today, grit, and getting our students to, work hard when the work gets hard, and I think if we model it and then we stop and then we discuss it, and, as it is, and then also, integrating some of those ruler skills and DBT skills in, as soon as we start to have emotions controlling our behaviors, okay, we need to stop. And what do we do? Like in DBT language, it's use your what and how skills to calm down, create some space before you respond to the stimulus. If you could think dialectically, you can say, yes, I'm feeling really stressed right now, and I can ask for extra help, and I can prioritize this work over something else. So if we can really, I think it comes down to providing an opportunity for those students to take that space and then be able to decide, okay, this is what is best for me. Is my action going to help me, or is my action going to hurt me? And just using that common language over and over and over again, I think will definitely help our students. But it's working hard and persevering and, recognizing our emotions. All of that is the foundation of how they're going to do, academically and socially. So it's, it's work in progress, but I think we're seeing some progress. So that's good news. But
yeah. And just to add too, I think a couple other pieces to that puzzle, right? We have a healthy learning environment goal, and we have provided, asked for feedback from the school, the staff, and the students around school climate. We'll be presenting some more of that in detail in the June 20th meeting as well. But I think also we as adults are also needing to give ourselves grace in some of the transition too, right? The idea that, I don't know, I wasn't here during the pandemic, but we were working 24/7, right? It almost like never shut off. And I think we need to give ourselves, remembering that we are able to give ourselves some boundaries again and shut down and let ourselves kind of disconnect at times during the day as well. So I think there's some rebuilding around that as well, not only with the students, but also with the teachers and the adults too, that we are finding that balance again, right? Would everyone agree? Any head nods here? Am I talking out of turn? Yes, right? Okay. I know we talk about it a little bit. And honestly, that directly does impact the student achievement, right? So we're trying to find that balance and making sure we're able to, we want to push kids, but we want to also find where that line is, where's that breaking point, right? Because we want them to experience perseverance and grit, but yet we don't want them to shut down either, right? They have to feel what that risk taking feels like, but also with support and guidance and everyone. And I think the tricky part of this work, because I have experience at home too, is that every child is different and how they respond is different, and the response by adults and the strategies may also be different, right? So really trying to individualize that work. Great question. We could go on for a longer period of time, but I hope that's enough, Bernie.
No, that made a lot of sense. Thank you. My next question is changing state of the world, artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, and the impacts on education. We don't know what's going to happen, right? We don't know what that means for the world. It kind of feels like when the internet kind of took hold, how it's going to change everything. What kind of systems do we have in place to explore how we can enhance the curriculum with this, or how perhaps we can mitigate some of the dangers that might come across as they come up?
Can I take a stab at starting with that? Dan DeVito can talk a little bit about systems, but to be perfectly frank, this is all new just within the last few months. So to think that we have a robust system and a plan in place of how we are working with the AI challenge, at this point, we don't. But it is certainly something that we need to work through and plan. And part of that is utilizing someone like Mr. DeVito and other people that are actually experts in this area. We certainly don't want children saying into an AI chat, write me a 5-paragraph essay about my trip to Mexico City, use the preterite and the imperfect, and then it spits out a beautiful essay. So how do we do something that simple? But we're not there yet, to be perfectly frank, Bernie. We know that it's there. We've had a lot of conversations on it and preliminary discussions, but you know, to have a whole robust system in place when it's literally changing as we speak. It's something that we have to address, but it's going to take some time. Mr. DeVito, would you like to add something?
Yeah, sure. So there are products that are playing catch up, right, with ways to identify it. So one of the products is like we use Google Originality Reports. So Google is working on something right now for that. But a lot of this is conversations with teachers and staff members, just so they can identify based on knowing the students themselves as to whether they are using AI to write their reports or not. You know, these teachers, they know their students very well, so they can quickly tell if that is something that a child has written themselves or if they've had a little bit of help. So most of the expertise that we've been on AI is knowing the kids and having these conversations. And I think I'd mentioned this at another board meeting. There are other things that we can do, but I'm not going to publicly say that, because kids can watch this meeting and then figure things out. So let's just say the biggest thing is having teachers know their students.
Yeah, if I could just add though, March 20th, when we had our professional development with teachers, we did offer an AI session, and we had an outside consultant come in from CES, which has been doing a variety of state trainings around AI in education and some of the tools around efficiency. And alternate, some people always just think about the writing aspect of it, but there's a variety of different tools around AI that help with supporting efficiency. The U.S. Department of Education actually provided a report back in 2023, a couple months ago, where they provided guidance for districts around tools and ways that AI is supporting education that we will be using to help leverage some of those questions around systems and the development of systems within the district. So to Lisa and Dan's point, we're looking at the ways that the state and the U.S. Department of Education is also supporting the use of these tools in schools too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was great. In March, we sort of put something out there. It was
Right.
a two-way stay, which is kind of the first step, and also to see how they present and what they're doing and everything. So how do we take it to the next level?
Right.
That sounds good. I mean, it makes a lot of sense that it's so new, figuring out what to do with it, and obviously there's potential risks for how we teach, but I just keep thinking about how it's going to revolutionize so many of the jobs that are out there. So it's going to change what we do in curriculum, as well as we're preparing students for these jobs that haven't even been invented yet, that just became possible in the past couple of months. So sounds like there's good conversations happening, beginning stages of that.
Chad, do you want to go? Oh, you're muted.
I was gonna say, David, if you have some questions, go ahead. I just have one, and I recognize we're running short on time. So, David, if you have a pressing one, jump in. If not, I'll ask mine.
I don't know that mine's any more pressing than yours, so I will follow you.
If yours are brief, you should go for it. Mine's like a longer, bigger picture thing, but I'm happy to bring it up.
You're gonna like close it up, Chad. Go ahead, David. Go for it.
Yeah.
Okay. So my question, I typically have a very predictable question. It's not what you're thinking, Tina. Although I was really good to see the STEM piece. I basically have two questions. The first is just to verify. I took some notes on my other screen, so if you guys kept seeing me over here, I was taking mad notes. My first question is the 40% increase that you're expecting to see at the high school level in STEM. When I went to Project Lead the Way, and I was sort of looking at such, I guess, their recommendation based on grade level, what the program offering is. For the high school level, they talk about computer science, engineering, and biomedical. Are we set up in our high school to offer those types of courses?
So at the high school, we have a computer science program as well, right? We have coding courses. We have two different AP computer science courses. For the Project Lead the Way, we follow the engineering pathway, and there are a multitude of options. So it was kind of like as this program got designed over the past decade or so, it was like, what was the best fit that's ideal for the students that we're facing now again, there's a lot of options that may change in the future. We never went with the biomedical route. We focus on just the technology and engineering pathway. So it involves, actually, Project Lead the Way has made some adjustments to their curriculum since COVID. Their introductory class is technically now an engineering essentials class. Our students have historically come in and taken right away the introduction to engineering class, which might be a little heftier now. Hence, if you remember me saying, that has warranted the need for kind of a intro level and then a more robust intro level for the students that have the math background and other necessary skills to be able to jump right into that. And then we have the principles of engineering. We have civil engineering and architecture. In the past, we've had computer integrated manufacturing. That's actually not going to be running next year. And like you heard me say, we're looking into the potential for digital electronics. So there are some options, and we're constantly keeping our minds open as to what's best. And, we bring student interest into that decision making as well.
Okay. And the basis of my question is from an infrastructure perspective. As the STEM program moves on, Project Lead the Way looks at, I guess, the changing atmosphere of what we need to do to prepare our students for the future. I would imagine literally from an infrastructure perspective, the way the classroom is set up, the materials in the classroom, the equipment, the teacher who's providing the education. I would imagine that's constantly evolving as well.
Yeah, and Project Lead the Way does have strict requirements around software, tools, and also the training. And so Jamie and Megan, as well as the teacher, they've been really good about collaborating and reaching out to the Project Lead the Way representative to kind of identify what are some of those courses that are changing, evolving, what are some of our options, because we can't offer every pathway. Project Lead the Way, like Jamie said, has tons of different options, and we have to be really strategic and mindful around which pathway we want to get really good at and who and why are we choosing it, because, and like Jamie said, because we are looking at the students' interest when we're looking at enrollment and we're looking at alternate options, if we don't have a class that we offer here.
Okay. And then my other question, I remember sitting around the room with many of you last year. I much more enjoyed it being in person. I believe it was in person last year, right? Mm-hmm. But my question is, how do you measure, we talked a lot about the success, and Tina, your presentation talked a lot about success, and you talked a lot about advances that have been made, but how are we actually measuring those? I may have missed it, but I remember from last year when we met and now this year, how do we actually put a measurable outcome on these changes? How do we, how do you quantify that these programs are actually working?
Yeah, I mean, I could start. Lisa can chime in. I wasn't here previous to, this year, obviously, as you know. And one of the things I kind of posed to the department was around ensuring that there was a strong through line between the action steps that we've identified across the departments and our district and school goals, right? And we wanted to make sure that the work that they all do, boots on the ground within their departments, are connected to the action steps that the school and the district improvement plans are aligned to. In June, we will then have a full conversation around the quantitative achievement levels that are connected to these action steps. So to Bernie's point, we could be here for hours if we really wanted to connect all the different quantitative indicators to the qualitative pieces. And we're going to do some more work across the department next school year around cycles of improvement and looking at how we measure more qualitative aspects of the work. But the purpose of today was really to highlight some of their action steps relative to the actual qualitative components of their work, and not necessarily connect each individual indicator to a quantitative piece like NWA or Smarter Balanced or, summative assessments in the curriculum.
Is it possible at some point to make that link? Because ultimately, right? That's the deliverable. How, for a lot of people, they don't necessarily know or even care. How did you get here? They want to know, we started at this point and we got to this point. This point is better than where we started. And that's, they trust educators, they trust the administration, but they want to be able to see quantitatively where we're improving. So is there a point in time where we can make a link between what we've been presented today and an actual?
I'll start and then Lisa can jump in. So in my experience, these high focus, high leverage action steps that each department presented to you today are the action steps that we've defined in our district and school improvement plans, which are connected to the quantitative pieces. So their jobs are boots on the ground around supporting teachers, around supporting schools, curriculum implementation, and some of the curriculum assessments that measure that success. And then at the school and district level, we kind of connect those action steps to the goals that each school and the district has, which we're going to go into detail in June. So what I'm hoping, what I really hope is that what you learned and what we talked about today, you'll see that through line and that connection when we see the student achievement, and be able to unpack areas that, look, this is where we know we need to focus moving forward into next school year.
Yeah, if I can just add there, there's all kinds of data and we know that. And with some particular programs, it's a little bit harder perhaps to see the results of something. Like you look at world language, and I'll speak to that. Mercedes not here, but I ran the department for a long time. And you say, well, what are the quantitative measures? You can look at, to me, I always looked at what are the percentage of the students that are taking the upper levels at the high school that were on this trajectory. So, when you're looking at our elementary program that's gotten so strong, we're really very grateful that we have two amazing teachers there. And you look at the trajectory across, you can make the connection that how many students, for example, have the seal of biliteracy when they graduate Weston High School? How many of them started in the elementary school in that particular language? How many students, get a score on the AP exam at Weston High? That doesn't just happen at the high school. That's a trajectory. So I guess, sometimes it's harder to see the exact correlation or link to a particular department, but it's because of all of those things, percentage of kids that are taking the class. We are very proud that we have, I don't even know what it is now. I'm guessing, but last time I calculated, it was almost 30% of the seniors took 2 math courses. That right there is data about a robust math program. Just the idea that Project Lead the Way, what is the enrollment? And not only what's the enrollment, how are they continuing? And are they getting college credit? And what are they doing with it? All of those little pieces are so important. So, I think it behooves us, especially when we're talking to the public, to kind of, people look at like specific scores and this and that, and they might say, well, hey, my kid, and I'll use my own child's example. She didn't take AP Spanish. She took standard level until the 6th level. She didn't take the AP exam, but she's really good at the language. And she was, all of those kids at that level were. So it's kind of a mixture. And I think we need to keep articulating that when we present these goals. But, I'm so proud of the things that are being done at the elementary and middle schools, because I know what's going to happen when they get to the high school. And we need to do a better job of drawing that through line when we speak about what are the outcomes. You'll see it at the graduation. Those kids that have those chords in all of those different areas of art and music and biliteracy. I'm really big on the biliteracy seal. It's impressive. So I hope that kind of helps.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, I mentioned when I was presenting for Mercedes, just even being in the room with those students and hearing them, just that one example, that's not really something you can attach a number to all the time, right? And so my own children don't have the same experience that we have in Weston around language acquisition in French or in Spanish. And there is a clear difference in that outcome at the end. And it's quite impressive when you actually can have a conversation, a fluent conversation with these students. And I went to the awards ceremony, and those aren't pieces, to Lisa's point. There's no number attached to that. It's more about the experience and hearing the outcome is actually from the experience and what they're able to produce now as a graduate. So That's only one little sliver of the piece, but I do think, like, to our point, the conversation that we're trying to show is the qualitative pieces, and maybe we could look at doing a better job of maybe taking some videos of the students actually reading and seeing the difference between how they read in kindergarten, right, versus third grade versus fifth grade versus when they, when they grow in those upper grades. And that may be true on some new ways of actually demonstrating those outcomes and the link between what we do every day and the leaders that they're focusing on curriculum implementation and the outcomes of the students after a certain period of time from, let's say, world language from kindergarten to 8th grade. So that's something that we can think about when we're looking at what is the link between our actions and the outcomes of the students.
Thanks.
Good point.
I think we scared Chad off.
To say, any other questions? But thank you so much. I mean, the work never ends. You guys all ended each section with the talk about the next steps. So we appreciate so much your dedication to continually developing and keeping on top of the trends and what's to come. Our conversations about curriculum don't stop. We have another conversation right at our June board meeting where we're going to do a little bit of a statistical review, and then on to even the next year, we're going to continue revisiting this. But appreciate your time so much today to share what you've been working on with us, and bravo, it's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, just one more time, I just wanted to say congratulations to the whole entire department on all their success this school year. This will be the final time that this team is all together in this capacity, as I mentioned, and just want to celebrate all of you and all the hard work that you've put into our action goals and our action steps this school year. Could not have done it without you. And we'll be able to see some of the quantitative outcomes in our June meeting as well. So we hope that you all participate and are able to listen in. So great job, all of you.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, David, can I have a motion to adjourn?
You may certainly have a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon.